Yes.
Okay, all right. So let's start. Before understanding Amazon Web Services itself, you need to understand what is a cloud computing, what is cloud, right? Many people have many definitions of cloud, but the standard definition that I think makes sense is from Wiki. It basically says cloud computing is the delivery of computing as a service rather than a product, whereby shared resources, software and information are provided to computer networks and other devices as a utility over a network, right? So it is basically saying the cloud computing of the services, like say the storage or the computing resource or the network or the application that you use in cloud computing will be hosted by some other party, a third-party vendor, and to use those services you need a internet connection, right? Even in the typical data centers, even in typical offices, what normally happens is you have your servers in your office. They'll be hosted somewhere. Servers will not be at your desk. Servers will be at some other place. They'll be hosted in your office, but you connect to them through your network. That is local intranet. So even your local offices are like small clouds,
Right.
right? Even they are the clouds. But when you're talking about this cloud computing, basically we are talking about public clouds, right? So this is how it works. You can your client devices can be anything from your laptops to desktops to tablets to phones to servers, and your cloud will basically host your infrastructure services, platform services, and as well as your applications. Infrastructure in the sense your say servers, the computing resources, the storage space, and the networks and the network, right? In the platforms, you'll have your databases, you have your runtime applications, you have identity management, queuing services. All of this comes under platforms, and many of your applications will be running on these servers. And to access those applications, probably you'll be using one of those devices like a laptop or a desktop, and you will be giving a internet address to access those applications, right?
Right.
In cloud computing providers, there are many cloud computing providers in the market, but the leader is Amazon Web Services at this moment. There are other cloud computing providers like Windows Azure and Google Compute Engine. There are many more like Rackspace and other people who give you all these services, but the leader of the pack is Amazon Web Services. So let's try and look at what is Amazon Web Services and what do they do. Okay, Amazon Web Services basically are the cloud providers. They basically give you resources on demand. So whenever it is like they're a collection of remote computing services. Right. They provide you a platform for the cloud, so where you can host your applications or computing or networking or storage in their infrastructure. And to use those applications, probably you will end up using a internet connection. So once you have an internet connection, once you have a server in Amazon Web Services, you're good to go. You're good to use Amazon Web Services, like their EC2 platform, right? Say you want to host a website. In a typical scenario, what will happen is there is no cloud, there is no AWS for this instance. We have to buy a server, and we have to buy an operating system, then we have to buy an application, then we have to host it. If you're going for Amazon Web Services, you don't have to buy a server. You just get the server, get the computing service from Amazon Web Services. On top of that, you host your you have your operating system. On top of that, you host your website, right? You don't have to pay anything upfront. All you have to do is you have to pay as long as you use your website. Say I'm hosting my website only for a month. In a normal scenario, I have to buy a web server and keep it throughout my life, right? If I'm going for Amazon Web Services, I just need to lease a machine instance, and use my web services on it for a couple of months, and then give it back to Amazon. So I don't have to pay much money on it.
Right.
Right? And there are many services offered by AWS. The services are like computer networking, storage and content delivery. We'll go through each of these things in the later slides. Then they also provide you database services. They also provide you deployment and management services. Then if you have any data and if you have to do an analytics services, they provide you that. They also provide you with mobile services, app services, and applications. Let's look at each of them. And we're not going to cover all of them. We may cover bits and parts of each component. Right? I'll also show you what all we are going to cover and what all we are not going to cover. Right? So when it comes to computer networking, there are different components like Direct Connect. Right? Direct Connect is basically a platform used by Amazon Web Services and party who are using their web services to directly upload and download the data to the cloud, basically to Amazon Web Services. We're not going to do that because that is not required as part of this course. Then there is another component.
So yeah, so Direct Connect is like what, like an FTP site? You just FTP it up and down. That's it.
It's not like an FTP site. It's a lease line type. Okay. Right? You'll have a lease line from your vendor. Then you'll give an IP address at the client's place, and Amazon will give you an IP address from this Amazon site, and then you'll have a direct connection. It's not like through internet. It's like an intranet connection.
Okay, so it's like we're setting up a secure network.
Right. Yeah. It's a separate pipe only for you.
Only, yeah. Okay.
Right. We cannot do that in for a class. So and there's nothing much in it. Right. So we're not going to do that.
But it would help to know it. Okay.
Right. I'll just run a brief overview on it.
Yeah. Yeah. When we do the class, you know.
Right.
If you can show me some of the stuff, it'll be good.
Sure.
How much practical do you have? I mean, of course, I have my own Amazon account, so I've got everything set up out there. So, how much practical do we do?
This is the only thing that I'm going to show on slides. After this, it will all be practical.
Like for EC2, you'll show the whole setup, like, you know,
yes.
Identifying which, like, you know, suppose I go to Eric Hammond's site and I kind of which installation of Ubuntu or whatever you're going to set up. So do you go step by step like that, or how do you go about it?
Let's look at that. All right.
Okay.
Right. Okay. Coming to EC2, we will start with understanding what's an AMI is. Okay. In Amazon services, there are no machines. What they call is AMIs. Right. AMI is nothing but a image of your system. Right. It's like a virtual machine running out there in the cloud.
Right.
Right. Then we'll try to understand what's an AMI is, and we'll try to launch our AWS instances. Then we'll try to understand the pricing. They have different pricing methodologies like on-demand pricing, reserved instance pricing, spot instance pricing. Basically, if you have to use the computing resources, you have to pay money to Amazon, right? For that, they have different pricing methodologies. How do you pay to Amazon? How much you can save in each method? I'll explain those things. Then we'll talk about security, setting up security. Then we'll look at the security groups. Security groups are nothing but they're like the firewalls. Right. So we'll look at that. Then we will look at how to choose AMIs and where do you get AMIs. Basically, the AMIs are like your templates, which are already there in Amazon Web Services, which you can choose an AMI instance and deploy it as an EC2 instance. Okay, so basically there are places where you can get ready-made machine instances. There are many providers. Amazon basically has a marketplace which is very similar to like a Play Store on Android, where different people host their own images. Basically they are selling their products. If you want a product, you pay money to them, and they'll provide you an AMI. from which you can set up your instances, the computing instances, and then you can use the services. Right, we'll look at that. We'll see how to create a new AMI. If you're planning to sell a product, if you develop an application and you think you can sell that on Amazon Marketplace, we'll see how to create a new AMI. Alright. Then we will look at key pairs. Once you have an EC2 instance, to connect to that instance, you need a key pair. Without the key pair, you will not be able to connect to it. We will look at how to create a key pair, how to use a key pair to connect to a Windows machine, how to use the same key pair to connect to a Linux machine. We will look at that. Then we will look at...
How many hours are we to do with the training? Because to do what you just said will take at least about 3 hours of discussion.
For what?
Identifying the AMI, setting up your key pair, setting up the security, all that stuff. I mean,
right.
To explain it will take us a good 2-3 hours.
Right, yeah. The EC2 is the main core part of it. I'm going to spend time on it. I'll take at least 2 or 3 sessions for it. At least 3 sessions, I guess.
Okay.
Right? EC2 is the piece of all of these AWS which is going to take time.
Right. Okay.
Right? Then we will look at elastic IPs. We'll try to understand what is an elastic IP and why do you need it.
Right.
Then we'll try to look at there is a service called as Elastic Load Balancer. Basically, Elastic Load Balancer is a load balancer which, say if you have a multiple web servers hosting the same website, and if you want the load to be equally distributed between those 2 servers, probably you are going to use a load balancer. In a similar way, Amazon provides something called as Elastic Load Balancer. Right? We'll try to see how to set up an Elastic Load Balancer and how to use the Elastic Load Balancer for our hosting the website. All right?
Then we will look at. Question on that is, we also discuss about how to move from a small API to a medium API for an existing application, and then you need to have multiple. Say you want to increase your sizes or increase your processing power. So from
API or AMI?
Sorry, AMI. So AMI. So sorry, not AMI. From a small instance to a medium or a large instance. Okay.
Right.
Also, kind of how do you migrate from a small to a medium to a large instance? And how do you ramp up your capacity if you're getting a lot of processing or throughput going through? Do you talk about that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Sure.
Yeah, because that is one of the challenges that I have faced.
Right. The best way, see, people use Amazon Web Services to do something called as horizontal scaling, right? So when you see more load, it is better to set up some auto scaling groups.
Okay.
Instead of increasing the size of your EC2 instance, it is better to get more instances doing the same task.
Okay.
All right. There is something called as auto scaling. So whenever you see more load on your instance, probably if you configure your auto scaling groups properly, it will create a new instance and it will place the new instance under the Elastic Load Balancer, and then multiple servers will do the same job and host a website for you, right? So it's something like that. We'll look at those things.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
Then we will look at Route 53.
Yeah, what is Route 53? Never heard of Route 53.
Right. Say you're trying to host a web server. Right? You need to have a DNS location, right? You need to have a DNS service. When you say www.google.com, it goes and talks to a DNS server, and from there it gets an IP address to you, and then you go and talk to that web server, whoever is hosting that. Right? Amazon provides a service called as Route 53.
Okay, so it's like giving you a domain name.
Right. It's basically a domain name service provided
by Amazon.
Once you register a website from your website providers like BigDaddy, GoRock, BigRock, there are so many other website hosting companies, right? You register a website with them and get the get your domain name, and then you come into your Route 53 into your Amazon Web Services. Then you say that from then on you're going to host your DNS service in Route 53.
Okay.
Right? In Route 53 we will look at how to create a zone. Then we will look at how to host a website. Then even Route 53 there are different routing policies. When to use, say if I have multiple web servers serving the same web page, right? I can configure my routing.
Sorry, repeat that again. Same web services having different web pages.
Right. Say I'm hosting, say AWSHyderabad.com example.
Right. Right.
Right.
Right.
If I'm say www.awshyderabad.com, it has to go to one server. Say www.1.awshyderabad.com, it has to go to another server.
Okay.
Right. See, when you type Amazon.com, it takes you to a different server. When you type aws.amazon.com, it takes you to a different server, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
So we will look at that. Then there are other policies for configuring resolution, name resolution. We'll look at that.
Okay.
Then we'll look at VPC. VPC is basically the virtual private cloud. As I said, cloud is a public place. Even in the public place, you can have your own private place.
Okay.
You can do that by using a VPC. Okay. We'll try and see how to set up a VPC. We'll try to understand how to configure it, how you can give security to your VPC, how to configure your inbound and outbound ACLs. Then we'll try to understand how elastic IPs work in VPC.
Okay.
All right. Then we'll come to.
Yeah. Okay. Continue.
Yeah. Go ahead.
No, I was just thinking VPC. I mean, how we control the IP? You know.
You can.
Okay.
We'll look at that in the class.
We'll look at that later. Okay.
Yeah, obviously we'll look at that in the class.
Okay. Yeah, I always want to know about CloudFront, because CloudFront, they talk about Singapore distribution, or like I guess it's
right.
the lowest hop. So the closest to the accessing layer, right?
Let me run through CloudFront and then I'll take questions.
Okay.
Is that fine?
Yeah. Go ahead.
Right. Basically, Amazon Web Services have the data centers located across the globe.
Right.
They have something called as edge locations. There are three different components, like regions, edge locations, and availability zones. Right. This CloudFront plays a crucial role with the help of edge locations. They have edge locations set up across the world. Say somebody in Hyderabad or somebody in say Delhi is trying to access a website which is hosted in say US, right? If somebody has to go all the way to US and come back, you're going to have latency, right? Instead of that, if you enable CloudFront, okay, they're using Amazon's edge location, your website will be hosted in the local place itself. It's edge location in Hyderabad or edge location in Chennai. If they have edge location in Chennai, whatever edge location they have closer to your place, your website will be served from that place instead of going all the way to US, right? Basically, that will reduce the latency of your website. Okay, that's the place where you use CloudFront, right? We will see how to set up a CloudFront. Then we will see how to create a website out of CloudFront. Then we get some restrictions on CloudFront. We can do many other stuff in CloudFront. We'll look at that during that session. Any questions on CloudFront?
No. I just was very curious about it, because I could never implement one of those.
All right, we will look at that.
Right.
Okay. Then we will look at another storage called as S3 storage. I'll come back to Glacier. There is another storage called as S3 storage from Amazon. Basically, S3 storage is a simple storage service. In simple storage service, they promise you a durability of 99.99 and then so many lines out there, right? And basically, S3 is a object storage. It's not like your regular storage, like your hard disk or anything like that. They store files in the form files, and in S3, it's not folders, it's buckets and files. Normal storage folders and files, right? In S3 storage, it's buckets and files, right? So we will look at S3 buckets. We'll look at creating S3 buckets, and we'll also see how to upload and download your content into S3 buckets. Then we can set versioning is a feature of S3 bucket service, right? You can maintain multiple versions of your data. Say I have a file today and I'm going to say modify that file tomorrow. So there will be a file with the same name, but you'll have two versions of the file in the storage, like version 1 and version 2. Imagine you think that you have done something wrong to the existing file. You can simply roll back a version and you can get your older file back. So Amazon S3 storage gives you a provision to enable object versioning. Then say you don't, if Amazon is giving you S3, they will charge for it. If you keep on only uploading the objects into S3, you may end up having consuming more storage of S3. Alright, so you can enable something called as life cycle policies. Say you don't want any files older than 60 days to be in S3 storage, you can enable that. You don't want any files older than a year to be in S3 storage, you can enable that. Alright, so we'll look at S3 services, then we'll look at Glacier. Glacier is something like your tape storage.
Sorry, Glacier is like what?
Something like your tape storage.
Okay.
Right, S3 is like your disk storage. Glacier is a tape storage. You don't want all of your data to be on the disk every time. You want to move some data onto your tapes so that you can save some money. Right? Because S3 is expensive when you compare it with the Glacier. Glacier is very cheap. Okay, and you don't want all of your data to be on the disk, right? You're not going to use the older data. Say a data that is older than a year, probably you're never going to use it, but you want to keep it. So what you're going to do in a normal world scenario, you're going to move it into the tape and you're going to store it in a vault somewhere off-site. Right? When you require it, you will get the tape and you will restore the data. In a similar way, Glacier provides you that service. Right? Basically, Glacier storage is a vault storage. Okay, we'll look at how to implement that. Then there is something called as storage gateways. If you have huge data that has to be uploaded to Amazon, then using a public internet would be a bit difficult. Then you will set up something called as storage gateways. Okay, where your storage will be connected to Amazon Web Services storage, and there will be a sync happening between both the places. Right? We are not going to look at that in detail, but if you want, I can give you a brief overview on that.
Okay.
All right? Then we'll look at databases. There are multiple database services provided by Amazon. The first database service will be a DynamoDB. DynamoDB is an exclusive Amazon database service. Basically, DynamoDB is called as a NoSQL database. It's a standard NoSQL database. Then we'll look at how to create a in DynamoDB, how to create a database, how to enter the data, and how to configure some alarms on DynamoDB. Other than that, they have something called as Elastic Cache. Elastic Cache, you're not going to cover it. It's basically used by people who are programming it, right? We're not going to do that. Then we are going to talk about RDS. RDS is nothing but relational database services. Amazon can provide you database services with the help of say an Oracle database or a MySQL database, Informix database, right? You don't need to have a database at your place. If you're going to use RDS, you can host a Oracle database, and Amazon will maintain your database for you. You can configure how many days of backup and all of these stuff in RDS. Then they have something called as a Redshift, which is like a Hadoop database, right? I'm not going to get into that. We're basically going to cover anything and everything that needs from the infrastructure point of view, not from the applications, right? Hadoop is not something that I know, so I'm not going to cover it. Redshift is in competition with Hadoop database. Right? We're not going to do that.
Right.
Okay. Then you have something called as in deployment and management, you have something called as CloudFormation, where say for a particular application, I need an S3 storage, I need an EBS volume, I need a EC2 instance, I need a security group, I need 10 different resources. If I do it every time manually, it's going to take very time. Instead of that, I can prepare template for it, right? And I can simply give it to CloudFormation. Okay, once I upload the template to the CloudFormation, it will automatically span all the resources that I need. Say I need 10 different EC2 instances and 10 different security groups and 10 different S3 buckets. I can simply give that in a JSON format. Amazon works on Java, so it understands JSON. JSON is like something like an XML.
Right.
You have to create a template and give it to CloudFormation. Once you give that template and give it to CloudFormation, it will automatically create resources for you. If you look at that, then you will have something called as CloudTrail. Basically, it is used to monitor your cloud resources on the mobile. We are not going to look at that. Then we are going to look at CloudWatch. Basically, this will be your eyes on your infrastructure. Once you have your infrastructure in place, you want to monitor it, right? You want to know which piece of your infrastructure is running at a high load, which piece of your infrastructure is running at a low load, and what's happening on your infrastructure. So you want to watch it. So CloudWatch will basically provide you the monitoring services. Right? Then we'll also look at Elastic Beanstalk. This is a very new application from very new service from Amazon Web Services. Basically, this will help you hosting an application. We'll look at that. Even if I explain it, probably you'll be able to understand it at this moment. We'll look at that. Then there is something called as IAM. It is Identity Access Management. If you're hosting an Amazon Web Services, you're not the only one who's going to access it. There could be multiple people accessing it. So you need to create different usernames for people, set different passwords, set different roles. All of this stuff you need to do it. So say, imagine you are the enterprise admin. In a Windows terminology, you are an enterprise admin. You're going to have your domain admins, your local admins, and different people like. In a similar way, you can set users, groups, and policies. We'll look at that. Then there is something called as OpsWorks. This is basically again used by like a programmers. We are not going to look at that. We are not going to look anything of analytics. Analytics is basically for analyzing the data, right? Once you have a big database, if you want to do some analytics, these services will be used. They are Data Pipeline, Elastic, MapReduce, and Kinesis, right? We're not going to look at that. Then there is,
okay.
Sorry?
Can you just go back to analytics? We're not going to use Elastic MapReduce?
Nope.
Okay. Do you know anything about those ones? Because I would like to know about Elastic MapReduce.
I can try, but probably I think for Elastic MapReduce we need an application to be set up. I can try, but I cannot guarantee you on that.
Okay. Okay.
Right?
Okay, let's go to the next one.
Yeah. Then there is mobile services like Cognito or Mobile Analytics and SNS. We are going to talk about SNS. SNS is Simple Notification Service. Basically, this notification service can send alarms to your say if EC2 instance has gone down. Your CloudWatch knows it, but it has to send a notification to you, right? Then your SNS will be able to help you with that. So
Right.
we'll look at that.
And does it also send you alarms for high utilization, or if your web service is under attack, like you've got a PHP injection going on or something happening to your service? Sorry? Hello? 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 Hello?
Are you there?
Yeah. Yeah. What happened? Okay. It just went down.
Not sure. Suddenly it got disconnected.
Okay.
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 So we are going to look at SNS. Okay. Then we'll look at app services. The basic things that we are going to look at is SES and SQS, right?
What
Other
is
things.
SES and SQS?
SES is simple email services, and SQS is and SQS is simple queuing services. Right. Basically, SES will help you in configuring email services for your infrastructure.
Okay.
If you want to host a say email sending website, right? You can use SES for that, right? Then SQS is called as simple queuing services. Basically, you're going to use distributed systems, right? In a big for a big application, the application will be hosted in a distributed systems. So where multiple systems will combine to work and produce an output, right? So simple queuing services will help you in. Normally, what will happen is one part of your infrastructure. Say I have two computers, computer A and computer B, right? Computer A has to do something and give an output which will be accepted by computer B, and it does some action on it, right? Computer A is faster and computer B is slower, right? Then computer A will keep processing the data faster and throwing out the output to the computer B. Computer B may be a bit slow, so it may not be able to accept all the data. Then it may drop some data. Instead of that, you will have something called as queue. Okay, computer A will keep processing the data and it will keep adding the output to the queue. Computer B will do processing and picking the data from the queue.
Is this something like Golden Gate kind of thing? Oracle Golden Gate or something of?
Your voice is low.
Oh, sorry. Is this something like an Oracle Golden Gate kind of application, where you're transferring data from one application to another one and it queues it and you pick it up?
Right. It's a queuing service. If I don't know about Oracle what you said, but it is a queuing service. It's not just about the data. It could be about anything. Right? Okay. It's basically a queue service where there are different pieces of infrastructure accessing the same things. Then,
sorry, you missed
right.
And Zoocalo. Sorry,
we're not going to look at that. Workspaces is basically, say if you want to host all of your desktops also in cloud. You don't want to host any of your desktops in your environment. You want to even have your desktops in cloud. Then you're going to use workspaces. Zoocalo is something very new. It is like a secured storage kind of a thing which we cannot implement it. So I'm not going to show you on that.
Okay.
So do you have if you have any questions other than that, I'm done.
Okay. So a couple of questions.